In this special episode of Because It Matters, we're once again recording live from Architects Connect 2025 at the Battersea Power Station in London. Today's topic, designing openness and safety in architecture. How can stadiums and entertainment venues feel both secure and welcoming? What does trust look like when you're designing for tens of thousands of passionate fans? And how does thoughtful architecture influence behavior, emotion, and experience? To dive into these questions, our guest today is Caroline Mills, Principal and Architect at Populous, a global leader in sports and entertainment architecture. Let's explore the world of safe, secure, and seamless access solutions together with our host, Wilma Werner.
Ladies and gentlemen, a warm welcome to this special episode of Because It Matters, the dormakaba podcast. And as you can see, we are not in Anapatal. We are at a very special location. We are on the 15th floor of the Art Hotel in Battersea in London. We are super close to the famous Battersea Power Station, and I am happy to introduce you to our next guest. She does have such an incredibly long list of key projects, and I would like to read it to you so you can freak out about it. So let me start. She worked on a lot of famous projects, including the Emirates Stadium, the Wembley Stadium, the O2 Arena, the O2 in Dublin, the first direct arena in Leeds, and the Zayed Sports City Stadium in the United Emirates. Plus, Tottenham Hotspur Stadium in London, UK, Wimbledon Master Plan in London, UK, and the Climate Pledge Arena in Seattle, USA, which is the first net zero carbon arena in the world. Please welcome with me Caroline Mills. I'm super happy to have you on this episode. When you hear that list of projects, do you still take pride? Does it make you happy listening to it? How do you feel about that?
Makes me feel old.
Oh no, you should be proud.
It has dawned on me that I've been working for the practice for a while now, and I've kind of racked up this experience within there, which, you know, each individual project is amazingly exciting to work on, and then you put them together and you go, okay.
No, it's an amazing list. I mean, I can tell you, yesterday I read the list to my boyfriend, who is not an architect. He's not into the industry at all. But I read the list and he turned into a literal fanboy for multiple minutes. I was like, calm down, okay, I'm talking to her tomorrow. So that was his reaction. And I hope you're happy listening to that list of projects as well. And I'm happy to have you here because we are here because the Architect Connect Summit is taking place right now. And you will be one of the guests. This year's theme is Spaces of Trust. And Caroline, when you heard this year's topic, what was the first thought that came to your mind?
I suppose it resonated because the typology of buildings that we work on is first and foremost is security and keeping the fans safe, the spectators. And it's just fundamentally deep-rooted in what we do. So yes, it felt like a good fit to come and talk about it.
And you are working at Populous, you are a practice that is specialized in sports venues. Can you share a bit more about that?
So Populous have been specialising in sports and entertainment venues. So we deal with large numbers of people in one place at one time, and where we want to give them the most amazing experience that they can have at a venue. We also have to be incredibly mindful that we need them to be secure and safe. There's a long history in the United Kingdom associated with events that are not great, like Hillsborough, and subsequent to that, Populous has really come to the fore in trying to design spaces which create an environment that people want to be in, but also will be secure in, and that's kind of fundamental to what we do.
What does trust mean to you when designing a venue like that?
I suppose trust means that the fan or the spectator or the viewer of an event can go and feel that they will be safe from arriving to departing. And we need to go through a lot of design development with the client and with security services and with the police and the fire department and building control to make sure that that happens. And when you're dealing with such large numbers of people, just the volume creates its own dynamic. We've been doing it for a number of years now, and we have become kind of, I think, world leaders in that area. And when the fans come, they don't see it. That's one of the design aspirations. We don't want them to feel like they're going into something that's overtly secure.
Yeah.
We're trying to make it as welcoming as possible.
Yeah. And can you share something about the design thoughts that you have, like about the physical layout, and how does that impact how people perceive if they're welcome or safe in that environment?
So one of the elements that we've been trying to do, particularly with football stadia in the United Kingdom, is to try and move away from what's called full height turnstiles. And full height turnstiles, you get them when you go to prisons. You feel like you're going into a cage to gain access to the venue. They were traditional in football stadia in the United Kingdom, but we felt that they resonated much more with a prison venue rather than an entertainment venue. We worked very hard with Tottenham Stadium to bring in what we call half-height, low-level turnstiles that you would get, say, at the Tube or at other venues. And there was a worry about spectators maybe jumping those turnstiles. And we took building control on a journey to suggest that if we treated fans a little bit better and more inclusively, they wouldn't want to jump the turnstiles, and you'll create a different environment and a different, more welcoming environment. At the same time, there are elements to the journey where, because there is an arrival to a stadium, that we can manage the security risk with the venue owner, with the police, to have a process by which by the time you get to the turnstile, you're not going to jump it. You've got a ticket. You've been checked at least twice, if not 3 times. You've been through, metal detectors. You've arrived, but it's in a much more gentle way, and that was quite important. So you're still keeping that very high level of security, but you're not making it look like you're going into a prison.
So what differences do you observe? How, do you call them guests or users or fans, for that matter?
Fans. Fans are very traditional for football because and they're passionate generally about their team, whether it's at a national level or it's at the club level. And yes, sometimes things can get a little bit out of hand, but I think the assessments that are made now around a building, as we approach it from, kind of where people arrive at the tube stations or at the train stations. So as people come from there all the way in their journey up to arrival at the stadium and then moving into it, not that we're in control of it completely, but we work with the other authorities to see that journey through to get people into the stadium.
That sounds like a huge process and a lot of aspects to consider when you build a venue like that. Can you share an example of let's call it a light bulb moment when you were observing the fans and their behavior, how something that you designed changed their behavior and made them feel more welcome, or when you had to alter a design in order to achieve that?
Well, I think my first project, Emirates Stadium, it was the design of the toilets.
Okay, what difference did that make?
Well, toilets are kind of a quite important part of the stadium.
Absolutely, I agree.
We all need them. They're part of the building. But instead of making them the cheapest possible, the client had an aspiration to try and make them kind of more robust and last longer, so they wouldn't have to refit them in time, but also a nicer environment. So the idea ended up being that we fully tiled these toilets, so they had a much better look and feel. This has then been taken on by Tottenham, who then elevated it one stage further, and I created what I think is the nicest toilets in the Premiership. When fans go in there, they're much less likely to vandalise, and it has been proven through research. I mean, research has been done on this, that if you give a good environment to a fan, they won't vandalise it, they won't knock it about, they won't treat it badly. They feel proud of it. They're invested. And that research is actually carried through to away fans. And we were told at Tottenham to definitely not downgrade the away fans area. They were going to have the same facilities, the same level of service as the home fans.
Yeah.
And as a result, when they come, they don't, knock it about the same way.
Yeah.
They respect it. And I think if you treat people with humanity, they show you what
So that
what they
sounds
are.
very appreciative. Also, not distinguishing whether it's your own team or the other team's restroom. So, and it's kind of like the fans pay the respect back that they got. That sounds great, especially since fans sometimes do have a certain stigma to them.
Yes, which we've tried through design and showing what design can bring to demonstrate that that's not entirely true. When the fans were put in, what they called pens, which were effectively cages, and they were treated really, really badly. That's in the 1980s. Now we don't do that. It's not safe. And it was not the right way to treat people. And I think people show up the way that you treat them.
If we hadn't been just a few minutes into the episode, I would have wrapped it up right now because it's a beautiful way to wrap it up, but we won't do it. Ladies and gentlemen, if you hear some background noises, that's because we are live on site and we are recording, so there's some background noises happening because we are not the only ones on this 15th level at the Art Hotel in Battersea. So, coming back to what you just shared, which is a surprising and beautiful example, the respect that you pay to the fans, they pay it back by being nicer fans. Can we put it that way?
Yeah, I think
so. Would you
so.
say, is it possible to emotionally communicate safety to fans or users in general?
I think fans now do feel much more secure than they did. We haven't actually done any proper research on it, and it's something maybe that's made me think that possibly we should do, is to get some feedback research on it. It's not something I'd thought about before. But I think subsequent to the events in Manchester, say, or, there's so many issues with creating a safe area for fans, and it isn't possible to do it completely. Obviously, this conference is about that and developing strategies going forward because, obviously we've tried our best so far, but we can't always see every angle that's going to come.
If there was one common approach in architecture that you could change for the better when it comes to safety and make people feel welcome, what would it be?
I think there are some venues that I go to, the density becomes a bit overwhelming, which is one of the issues that obviously we have been through what's called the Green Guide, which is the guide to safety at sports stadia, looking at. And I think it has incrementally got better over years. More space is given to the fan in spaces adjacent to the bowl. It's still, unfortunately, built into older venues. Part of my job now is to go and look at these venues and find solutions to unlocking almost space so that they can have a better experience. Because, yes, being kind of all cooped up in a claustrophobic space can feel a little bit overwhelming, I think.
And since Spaces of Trust is this year's summit's topic, can you share an example where the aspect of security had an impact on your design of a venue? And what impact did it have?
I think it's very emotionally resonant in the UK. Gaining the trust of the spectator back into football, particularly, was fundamental after the Taylor Report in the early 1990s and what happened at Hillsborough. One of the big moves was to make stadia all-seater, which obviously helped with managing the crowds and managing people within the spaces. There's definitely a move now to introduce elements of safe standing within stadia now, which I think is quite interesting. And it shows how trust has come back. And it is a circular thing. So you have the fans have trusted the venues because they've become much safer, and we haven't had a serious incident since Hillsborough. And now we can now offer back safe standing because the fans obviously behave well and there aren't incidents. So it's interesting how we've gone full circle.
Yeah, that sounds great. Do you sometimes go to a football stadium?
Yes.
Or Wembley, like as a private person, not from the architect's perspective, but you as Caroline to enjoy a match. Do you do that?
I do go
Okay.
to the venues. I'm always utterly overwhelmed, particularly if it's been a venue that I've worked on, is how much joy there is in. Well, it depends if the team's winning, I suppose. But even so, there seems
Depends
to
on
be,
who you ask. Yeah.
there seems to it is that atmosphere of the crowd that kind of collaborate and get together and have an energy that is quite special.
Yeah. Do you sometimes take pride in you?
Oh, yeah.
You being a part of that, and your work led to that.
Yes, definitely. I think that's why I've stayed with the practice that long, is that there's an ultimate joy in being able to give that. And yes, sometimes the stadia aren't the most glamorous looking, although Tottenham I think is, but just being part of that collaborative team of supporters, spectators, everybody, for a project and see them through and then give them something. And we get so much back on, say, Tottenham. You worked on Tottenham. So they get so excited. And even if they're not the other team, say the red team, they're, oh yeah, it's a pretty good stadium, isn't it?
Yeah, it's okay. We have to admit it. It's a pretty good stadium. I was like, yeah, that was me. How does it look like if a client approaches you and they ask for specific secure accesses? What are their demands? I mean, fans want to feel welcomed, and what do the clients request?
Well, the client at Tottenham were very pro having low-level turnstiles. It was very useful to have their support because obviously there has to be a buy-in from everybody involved in the project, from building control, police, security, and within the stadium themselves. So if you have the support of a client, it does assist you in moving it forward. They do realise now that they're quite well educated, so they realise that there are other ways of creating a safe and secure venue. CCTV is incredibly developed over the last 25 years to give us the ability to deal with any issues that might come up in a crowd of 60,000 people. So, yeah, the clients are there, engaged and interested because it's in their best interest to do so, which is great.
When we talk about urban spaces in general, what do you say? How will that concept of personal freedom develop in the next years?
It is difficult because it's down to how it's used, and that's something that I don't know. We as architects have so little influence on how the CCTV issue resolves itself. We have to have good governance, and I think that's going to be fundamental. to making sure that it isn't used and abused.
And if you had one wish to give to clients who approach you and ask you to build a sports or an entertainment venue for them, what wish would you have?
Look after your fans.
I wish I would have had that as the last question. So look after your fans. Is there a football stadium that you have not yet visited that you would love to visit? Say Allianz Arena.
There's a couple in Japan I'd quite like to go and visit.
Is it already on your bucket list or your planned?
It is,
list?
because my daughter desperately wants to visit Japan next year.
How old is she?
She's 17, so
Yeah.
it's a post-A-level trip to the other side of the world. And she's used to being dragged around football stadium. She had to get dragged around Barcelona when we visited.
Yeah. So, I mean, you can...
She takes the rough with the smooth.
Yeah, you probably wouldn't make her happy with a second league stadium anymore. I mean, if she's used to the A-level world-class elite stadiums because of her mom, let's say, you created it.
She did like the Sky Bar at Tottenham and the food and the view. So she thought that was quite amazing.
Yeah. How many stadiums has she seen or experienced already? Roughly, what do you guess?
No, it's that's really difficult because you suddenly end up realizing that you visited the Commonwealth Games and they, there's a series of venues there that they went to. So even on a holiday, 4.
Okay.
So yes, it would be difficult for me to count.
Okay.
Maybe I should get her to do that. Should go.
Maybe we will ask her then, but she wants to go to Japan, next one on the list. Is there a recent project that made you reflect differently on that aspect of safety in the venues that you design and build?
I think different countries do things differently. So we have to be aware when we go and work maybe in France or in Italy or the Middle East that we have to understand the local culture. And I think that's made me more aware because having worked a lot in the UK, I became quite kind of protective almost of how we approach things because I think we do it very, very well. But I do understand that when we go to another country that we have to think about how culturally we take what we're learning from the UK and apply it sensitively in those countries.
So to be more respectful and considerate.
Yes. And also realize that there are different approaches and we can learn from those as well.
So what did you learn when you worked at the Emirates?
So the interesting thing about the Emirates was that we were mid-project design when 9/11 happened. And
Wow.
when that happened, I think we, with the rest of the world, we were shocked. I mean, utterly, it was abhorrent. But we had to pivot very, very quickly. We'd been in a period of maybe slightly relaxing about security. Post the Good Friday Agreement, obviously in the United Kingdom, there was less worry about terrorism. And instead, now, we suddenly had to think very long and hard about it. I, as a young architect, it was the first time of being exposed to anything like this, but obviously having the security services come in, discuss with us what the risk threats were and how we needed to address them. And it was retrospective. We'd already started the project and we were having to deal with particularly vehicle at that time, which we hadn't even thought about a moving vehicle trying to target spectators coming away or entering the venue. So I suppose, yes, I learned a lot from that. It was quite shocking. It's shocking to think in those terms of somebody trying to do that. And then obviously trying to think of creative ways to manage that risk. And, one particular corner was very exposed. And it ended up, we used the Arsenal letters in concrete to create this kind of vehicular mitigation barrier. So it kind of, again, trying not to make it all about bollards and high defense kind of mechanisms, but something that, the fans could buy into.
Yeah.
And literally they do, because they love the Arsenal logo letters being out there at the base of that bridge. But that's there for security reasons.
You got best of both worlds, and it sounds like a beautiful solution to a crucial question. I say, Caroline, thank you very much for sharing your experiences and your approach to building football stadiums and entertainment venues that make people feel welcome and safe. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And to everyone listening, thank you for being our guest on today's episode of Because It Matters.
That was Because It Matters, a Dormakaba podcast. New episodes every month wherever you can listen to a podcast and on dormakaba.com.